Okay, hi everybody. And again, just want to say thank you to William for organising what is a truly amazing conference so far. The quality of speakers has been unbelievable, and I probably don't deserve to be here. I'm going to talk about Gibraltar, best practices in token sales, and also touch on the Gibraltar blockchain exchange. I've got about 7-8 minutes, so I will fly through. For those of you who don't know where we are, we're just at the southern tip of Spain, overlooking Morocco. We're a British overseas territory. We have our own government. We finance ourselves. Had about 10% GDP growth for the last 15 years. It's very successful. About 30,000 citizens. If you think about the size, Central Park times by 2. That gives you an idea of how big or how small it is. We have 109 people unemployed. They're unemployable. And we've got probably the highest GDP growth per capita, I think, in the world, one of those. We're in the EU for the moment until the UK leaves. With 30,000 people, we've had to try to comply with every single EU directive, of which there are loads. We rank the same as Germany, so we've had to work extremely hard to be fully compliant as a jurisdiction. So about 20-something years ago, our government was the first to look at remote gambling legislation. And at that time in the world, betting was mainly in shops, it was going on the phone, and the big players, William Hill, Ladbrokes, etc., they were looking for a jurisdiction where they could go to where there would be legislation. So the government decided to be the first in the world to actually draft some legislation. And they've successfully maintained probably the world's largest global share on online gambling. They only have 23 companies, as opposed to around 300 in Malta. And they have something like 40% of the world's volume. Gone for quality over quantity. So they want to do the same again with the blockchain. So in 2016, the government asked a question to industry, not just in Gibraltar, but globally. Financial services companies, if we were to come up with some regulations that offered a licensing and regulatory regime for anybody using distributed ledger technology, would that be a good idea? If you think about January 16, that was quite forward thinking. Fast forward to this year, May, the government released their framework, and the response to Gibraltar was fabulous. And then they are rolling out the law in January 18. And when we say law, there are regulations for, again, anyone who holds or transmits assets using the blockchain, client assets. But they were very clever because they came up with a set of principles. It's not rules-based. And the principles that you can see on there really are pretty sensible principles. Are you fit and proper? Do you have the right capital? Do you have the right people? Are client assets safe? And what it allows the regulator to do is to grow and innovate as this nascent technology explodes, which we believe in Gibraltar DLT is going to over the next 5 to 10 years. We didn't want to be boxed into a regulatory framework where you just were too restricted. So what are you doing? You're providing regulatory certainty to companies to come to Gibraltar and get licensed and regulated, but you're also increasing consumer confidence. And those are the two things that you're trying to achieve. Everyone's seen that graph. Obviously, the token sales space is on fire right now. And we, from our stock exchange's perspective, and I'm the CEO of the Gibraltar Stock Exchange, we were looking at this space thinking, okay, we've got these regulations coming in. We sort of stay awake at night worrying about things like investor protection, disclosure, transparency, reputational risk. And we saw all of those things in the space. So if you're a token issuer, we've got token advisors cropping up everywhere. Do you know if your advisor is actually qualified to take you on a fundraising round? Are you actually eligible to release your token in the country that you're domiciled? Are the takers of your token actually allowed to actually buy your token? Have they been cleared for AML and KYC, et cetera, et cetera? And also with the volume that's happening right now, can you differentiate yourselves actually from other token issuers? If you look at it from an investor perspective, can I be certain this isn't a scam? Just reading today that the SEC's just fined somebody today and shut them down for a scam because they were promising 1,000% returns in their token. But if you're a taker of the tokens, what about that vetting process? How do you filter out the quality from the utter rubbish? Is it actually utility? Are there legal advices in there from the different regions that this is not a security? So we looked at all these problems, and we thought that's Gibraltar, by the way. So we thought, okay, what we can do is, as the Gibraltar Stock Exchange, we're going to incorporate a subsidiary, the Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange, and it's going to be a token sale platform and a cryptocurrency exchange that's licensed and regulated under these regulations that I just talked about coming into force in January 18. But it's also part of a stock exchange, so you're on a pathway. You've got access to a whole stock exchange ecosystem, from token generating event right through potentially to IPO. So just to give you the graphic, if you look at the top left, Hexagon 1, think of that as a token issuer. You're coming to the market, doing an ICO, let's just say. And what you can do is you can come to GBX, the Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange, and you can appoint a sponsor firm. Now that sponsor firm has been vetted and approved by us. They've met the criteria of our sponsor's code, which we've already drafted. And if you think about who would be an ideal sponsor, well, they're probably a highly respected token advisory firm right now. They could be in the VC space. They've seen a lot of applications come into them looking for investment. They've seen that the weaknesses perhaps in the white paper, etc. And a lot of VCs are starting to venture into the advisory business. They've got away maybe a few ICOs. They would be your classic type of candidate, for example. So your sponsor firm is approved. The sponsor firm is now going to put you, the ICO issuer, through, as I call it, ICO bootcamp. We've got listing rules, so you're going to have to comply with our disclosures. What should the white paper look like? We're going to give you a template. We want to make sure that due diligence is done on the controllers, commercial DD, legal DD, financial DD, technology DD. What a number of boxes that we want to have ticked. What we're doing is we're vetting out quality ICOs. We're basically saying you fulfill the requirements that we expect from a quality issuer for you to come to market. And what we're saying to investors on the right-hand side is you can come with confidence and know that we've filtered out, hopefully, the low quality or poor issues that we see risks. When you are approved by us, you bring us your bundle. The sponsor will put the bundle with us. We will vet everything. We'll do our own due diligence, and then we will approve your token sale. You can launch your token. You do your pre-sale, your private sale, your public sale. When you're finished, you're guaranteed a listing on our exchange. Some of the challenges that I think token issuers have now is they go through the process, they do the road shows, they launch, they close, and they're sort of running around trying to find an exchange. So we will guarantee you that listing. We're also going to offer you dual listing on other exchanges, because the exchanges that we've met, we've basically just done all the hard work for them. So for them, they're taking the view that their risk is relatively low because our standards of DD are so high, being a stock exchange. So that's basically the flow chart. The bottom left-hand octagon or hexagon is if you're already a token issuer. We've had a lot of token issuers come to us and say, actually, could I potentially come onto your exchange? And we've said you can, but you're still going to have to fulfill the requirements of our listing rules. So if you adapt your white paper accordingly and we approve it, we'll publish it and you go straight through to trading. There's no launch. So as I said, you are part of an exchange. The Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange is part of a stock exchange. We have two exchanges. We have an EU regulated market in the middle, which means that we are eligible to passport any of our approved securities across the whole of the EEA for the moment. And then we have our own exchange regulated market, which is a multilateral trading facility as well. And what does this mean? It means you're going on a pathway. We're trying to be the bridge between crypto and traditional. So as a fintech company or as a startup or an innovative technology firm, you can tap the token market and then hopefully you'll stick with us. And over time, we could maybe help you do a bond issue and then maybe in 7 years' time do an IPO, just to try and help you go on a capital raising journey. Even though I don't look it, because of my blonde hair and youthful appearance, I've been doing this about 34 years. I'm a trader by training. I was with Bear Stearns, I was with ING Barings, I was a global head of trading, then became the global head of equities, then ran my own trading company until I got involved in this venture. We have a great management team. We just sold a piece of our company to an Asian fintech company, so we now have a really strong Asian presence as well. So we've got a great gateway there in terms of distribution. We just acquired on Friday a company in Gibraltar called Grant Thornton. They're fund administration. They're the biggest fund administrator and corporate services company. We're trying to offer fintechs, come to us and we'll look after you in terms of getting your company open, getting your bank account open. The banks are on site in Gibraltar. They're not on site everywhere. We can help you do your tax returns. We'll help you do everything you need. And if you're a fund manager, we can help you. We'll do your fund administration, etc. Going to the payments business in January, we'll file our e-money license as well. And we just want to try to be able to build an entire ecosystem around a stock exchange. It wouldn't be a token summit event if I didn't talk about briefly a token. We are doing our own issue. We're in private sale now, and the token is a utility, 100%. Obviously, we are fulfilling the standards which we will expect others to follow. But it's there basically for 3 or 4 reasons. One, you can pay your trading fees, your listing fees, and sponsor fees. But also, if you hold a minimum balance of RKT, you get access to every ICO that's coming through. You'll get access in the public sale to that first window, so you get preferential treatment. There's a lot of membership and access benefits in terms of holding the token. And that's it. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening.
Great, thanks very much, Nick. So what you're doing is quite unique. I think nobody's doing this right now, the way you're doing it. Is that correct?
It's interesting because we've met a few of the big exchanges over the last 6 months, and I think many of the big exchanges would actually like to do this, but it's just a real challenge for them in terms of legacy architecture, legacy, I guess, mindsets, and their ability to move so quickly is pretty difficult. So, yeah, I think as a stock exchange owning a licensed and regulated token sale platform and cryptocurrency exchange, yeah, I think it's the first in the world.
Okay, so to put things in perspective, are you open for business now or soon to be? Soon to be.
So we are putting in our license application on the 1st of January when the regulations come into effect. So we want to obviously be first in the queue. Our actual intention is to be open the last week of December. That's what we're aiming for. And we'll have the token sale platform and the cryptocurrency exchange open. Because if we're open, you can actually carry on actually operating when the new regs kick in. So, but as of today, we're a traditional stock exchange doing fixed income.
Who gives you the license? Is it FSC?
Yeah, our Financial Services Commission.
That's for Gibraltar only, not UK related?
No, Gibraltar only.
Only, okay. And so how many, do you have a big pipeline of companies that are waiting now? What?
Yeah, I mean, we've, our budget is extremely low because we weren't sure how it was going to pan out. But what we've found is we've got about 25 firms who have expressed an interest, strong interest in becoming a sponsor to bring tokens to market. And for example, I think the lawyer from Cooley said this morning, that she maybe looks at 1 out of 20. We've got one sponsor firm that has 30 ICO applications that they're reviewing right now. Now, of those, obviously one or two may be quality, but the interest that we've received for our little jurisdiction of Gibraltar, that the industry has actually been looking for this solution in terms of best practices, vetting, a licensed and regulated marketplace for tokens.
Yeah, from my own radar, I have been hearing more and more companies saying to me they are going to Gibraltar when I ask them, where are you going to do your ICO? And some of them, you have a couple of Canadian companies, I think, that have gone through your process. But anyways, so how many do you expect to do next year?
Well, we're anticipating that we'll launch 20 ICOs in 2018. That's what we've predicted, and then 50 in 19. The way that I think the space is evolving so quickly, and the interest and appetite we've seen so far in what we're doing, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a multiple of that.
When did you figure this out and realize that you had to get into the blockchain?
It was interesting because when we first started, we engineered the first Bitcoin asset-backed security in the world, and that was a big ask. We were approached by a company, and they were interested in trying to institutionalize Bitcoin, because as we've heard today, the themes are your traditional investors are struggling to actually get in. So what we did was we sat down with a regulator, and I said, look, we want to create an asset-backed security that's backed by Bitcoin. We're going to have to open an account with an exchange. We're going to have to make sure we've got security. It's a Delta One product, and blah, 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 blah. It's securitization structure. It's actually highly complex. But we got it away, and it was approved under a EU-regulated prospectus. And that's really going through that learning curve was when we first started to really, the regulations were coming on stream, so we were all learning about DLT, but that was the first time I was actually involved in a trading effect of a currency. And then really on the back end of that, we saw the token space just starting to pick up at the back of 16. And as we saw through 17, it started to pick up. And being, from a trading background, I was interested in the growth of the asset class, if you call it that, but at the same time extremely concerned because there were no regulations, there's no legislation, there's no nothing. As a result, I think there's a risk that investors have, possibly already lost a sizable amount of money because I think quite a few of these could actually be relatively fraudulent.
One thing I like about your approach is that you are taking a fresh look into this and not saying, let's apply the existing regulation. Like your set of best practices, that's kind of innovative. I haven't heard of other exchanges that are doing that. So that's attractive.
I think it's very hard for an exchange because in the EU and same in the States and everywhere, we're so governed by legislation. And if you look at the regulations we operate in the EU under MiFID, or as I call it, the bitch MiFID, you've got just an incredibly prescriptive regulatory environment. So when we came to looking at the token sales business, there are no rules. There's nothing at all. So we had to basically go where no man's gone before. We had to basically say, look, we're going to take what we understand about capital markets, who can be a sponsor, what does an issuer have to look like. Let's focus on, from a regulatory perspective, if you like, who's eligible to issue tokens, what do we expect in terms of disclosure in a white paper, what do we expect in terms of reporting from the issuer once they've gone secondary, and what do we expect from the behavior of the market in terms of market abuse. So those are the things we factored in. We then took in the 9 principles of the regulator and said, okay, standard stuff, you've got to be fit and proper, we've got to make sure we do this, da-da-da-da. And then we put all that together into a pack and we said, okay, this actually is a sensible framework which has flexibility, but creates a best practices vetting process where if you are a questionable issuer, you're just not going to call us because we'll find you out. Great.
So last question is, if somebody in the audience is an entrepreneur and they are interested, what is the process? What are the steps that they should go through to approach you and start to get involved?
I think if you're an entrepreneur and you were thinking of actually issuing a token, then I think there's a couple of things you can do. First of all, depending on where you're domiciled, let's just assume you're allowed to issue a token, then obviously we would welcome you to talk to us at the end of this month, early January, and as our sponsors start to apply, we would like to think that you as an issuer could contact a sponsor and the sponsor will basically take care of you. Now, our distributed ledger technology regulations do not cover token sales. It covers operators using distributed ledger technology as a financial services company. But at the end of this month, our regulator is releasing a framework for token sales with the view that they want to put in regs in February 18. So if you're a fintech and you're actually open to domiciling in Gibraltar, then actually that could be really, really exciting because then your token sale will have a regulatory stamp as well as being listed on a regulated and licensed token sale platform and cryptocurrency exchange. That really is, I think, the full suite. So that could be very, very powerful.
Great, great. So thanks very much, Nick. So now in closing, I want to spend a minute telling you a story. A bit of a sad story, but I think it's going to be okay. The reason and the way that I got into Nick is via a person by the name of Joey Garcia. And Joey is a lawyer in Gibraltar with Isola, the law firm.
He's our lawyer.
He's your lawyer, obviously. And Joey attended the Token Summit in May, and I got to know him. And 2 months ago, I invited Joey to come and speak at the conference. And I said, I want to get somebody from the GBX. Can you get me into the GBX? And he connected me with Nick. So Joey is the reason why we have Nick here. Unfortunately, about a month ago, I got an email from Joey's boss. And Joey had gotten into a very terrible accident. We won't go into details, but he was hospitalized and he was not able to come here. So originally, if some of you had been watching the agenda of the Token Summit, Joey was on the agenda. And this session would have been with Joey sitting right here. Joey is fine now, and we just have a little card. We had a few speakers sign it for him. And we want you to be the messenger to give this to Joey.
I'll make sure it gets home safely. It's funny because the accident, we were worried at one point whether he would actually get through, and he did. He got through, and I've been in Asia for the last couple of weeks, and he contacted me on Friday and said, I'm trying to find a doctor who will sign me off to come to San Fran. And I said, listen, just stay where you are, because if you're on stage, you're only going to try and steal my thunder and the microphone. So screw you, stay at home. But he's in great health, and he's on his way back. So, but again, William, thank you, and a lovely touch. Thank you very much.
We're going to have him back in next year in New York, for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.